Dr. Eli Sanderson prided himself on being one of the few humans willing to venture into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. As a biologist stationed at an isolated research outpost on Zillera 3, he had spent the last 3 years cataloging the planet's peculiar flora and fauna. Zillera 3 was a lush, untamed world where trees spiraled toward the clouds and bioluminescent plants glowed softly at night. Its jungles teemed with creatures both wondrous and dangerous, perfect for a man like Eli, who found solace in the company of the unknown. The day had begun like any other. Equipped with his scanner, field kit, and reinforced boots, Eli trudged into the dense forest, intent on tracking a species he tentatively named the silverback leaper. He had just crossed a shallow, bubbling stream when his attention was drawn to a faint, pitiful cry. It was unlike anything he'd heard before, a melodic, mournful sound that tugged at his chest. He scanned the area with a cautious eye, following the sound to a thicket of glowing ferns. There, nestled among the foliage, lay a creature that defied logic. Its body shimmered as though coated in liquid starlight, with hues shifting from deep blue to radiant gold as it moved weakly. Its eyes, large and luminous, reflected the surrounding jungle in eerie clarity. A deep gash ran along its side, oozing a silvery substance that glittered like mercury. "What in the—" Eli muttered, dropping to one knee. He activated his scanner, but the device sputtered and failed to produce a coherent reading. "You're not in the database, are you?" The creature gave a soft whimper, its gaze locking onto his. It didn't resist as he carefully reached out, his gloved hands trembling slightly. Its skin was warm, almost unnaturally so, and it pulsed faintly under his touch, like the rhythm of a distant star. Despite its alien form, Eli saw intelligence and pain in its eyes. "All right, buddy, let's get you fixed up," he said, slipping the creature into a portable containment unit lined with soft cushioning. The being let out a small, resigned trill before collapsing into unconsciousness. Eli's mind raced as he hurried back to his outpost. What was this creature? How had it been injured? And why did it feel familiar, in a way he couldn't quite place? The outpost, a domed structure nestled in a clearing, was equipped with state-of-the-art medical technology. Eli placed the containment unit on the examination table and activated the scanning module. The readouts were baffling. The creature's internal structure was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. Instead of organs, it seemed to house a network of crystalline filaments that pulsed with energy. Its blood, if the silvery fluid could be called that, contained microscopic particles that danced like tiny galaxies under the microscope. "You're full of surprises," Eli murmured as he worked to clean and seal the creature's wound. The medical tools responded sluggishly, almost as if confused by the being's alien physiology. But Eli persisted, relying on his instincts and years of training. Hours passed, and the creature's breathing, or what he assumed was breathing, stabilized. Exhausted but satisfied, Eli leaned back in his chair and stared at it through the containment field. In the sterile light of the lab, its shimmering form seemed to dim slightly, as though it were hiding its true nature. "What are you?" he whispered. As if in response, the creature stirred. Its luminous eyes opened, fixing on Eli with an intensity that made his breath catch. It let out a soft, melodic sound, not a cry this time, but something more deliberate. Almost like words. Eli frowned, leaning closer. "Hey, easy there. You're safe now." The creature's form began to shimmer more brightly, and before Eli's eyes, it started to change. Its limbs elongated, its shimmering skin taking on a more humanoid shape. Eli stumbled backward, heart pounding, as the creature's transformation slowed. Where the alien had once been, now stood a figure that was almost human, a woman, radiant and ethereal, her features delicate but unmistakably otherworldly. Her eyes remained luminous, reflecting the light of the room. She took a shaky step forward and spoke, her voice a melodic harmony that sent shivers down Eli's spine. "Thank you," she said, the words clear yet resonating with an unearthly quality. "You have saved the life of Seraphine, Princess of Nebulon." Eli stared, his mind reeling. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The shimmering woman before him smiled faintly, her exhaustion evident even in her transformed state. And with that, she collapsed, leaving Eli to grapple with the impossible truth. The creature he had saved was no ordinary alien, but royalty from a realm he had never imagined. The silence in the laboratory was palpable as Eli stood over the unconscious form of the alien princess. Seraphine, she had called herself. Her appearance radiant and humanoid yet unmistakably otherworldly left him in a haze of wonder and disbelief. He could feel the weight of her earlier words still echoing in his mind, Princess of Nebulon. What in the universe had he stumbled upon? Gathering his composure, Eli activated the containment field to ensure her safety and his own. The shimmering energy barrier flickered to life around the examination table. He sat down at his terminal, his fingers hovering over the console. Every protocol screamed at him to alert the Interstellar Alliance about a first contact scenario. But something about her vulnerability, the desperation in her earlier gaze, stopped him. Instead, Eli began a deep scan of Seraphine's physiology. Her crystalline filaments, the intricate network he'd glimpsed earlier, emitted faint pulses of energy, not unlike the signals of a high-powered quantum computer. Her silvery blood contained nanoscale particles that resonated with harmonic frequencies, their patterns too precise to be random. This wasn't just advanced biology, it was a symbiosis of life and technology. Incredible, Eli muttered, his scientific curiosity momentarily eclipsing his disbelief. A soft chime from the containment unit broke his concentration. Seraphine was stirring. Her eyes fluttered open, their luminosity dimmed but still captivating. She sat up slowly, her movements graceful despite her evident exhaustion. For a moment, neither spoke, the tension between them heavy with unspoken questions. "I owe you my gratitude," Seraphine said, her voice like a melody. It carried a regal authority, yet there was a warmth to it that disarmed Eli. "You have risked much to aid me, Dr. Sanderson." Eli blinked. "You know my name?" She inclined her head slightly. "Your identification is displayed on the wall panel. I'm familiar with the human script. Nebulon scholars study your species. You study us?" Eli's mind reeled at the implications. Seraphine nodded. "We have observed humanity for centuries. Your resilience and ingenuity are remarkable, though your kind is still in its infancy compared to many interstellar civilizations." Eli ran a hand through his hair, trying to process her words. "If you've been watching us, why hasn't anyone from Nebulon or anywhere else made contact?" Her expression darkened. "There are rules. Protocols of non-interference. My people adhere to them strictly, though I have bent those rules to be here." Eli frowned. "Why? What happened to you?" Seraphine's gaze dropped to her hands, which glimmered faintly in the containment field's light. "I was the heir to the throne of Nebulon. But my position made me a pawn in a political alliance. My family arranged for me to marry a warlord, a tyrant whose power threatens to engulf neighboring systems." Eli's chest tightened. "You ran away." "I had no choice," she said softly, her voice laced with a pain that Eli couldn't ignore. "I fled in a cloaked escape pod, but my pursuers discovered me. My vessel was damaged in the skirmish, forcing me to crash on this world. They believe me dead. For now." Eli leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "If they find out you're alive, they'll come here." Seraphine's gaze met his, resolute. "That is why I must leave as soon as possible. The longer I remain, the more danger I bring to you and your world." Eli's instinct as a scientist warred with his conscience. He wanted to study her physiology, learn about Nebulon, and understand the technology embedded in her very being. But the urgency in her voice made it clear that her safety was paramount. "You're too injured to travel yet," he said firmly. "I'll help you heal and repair your pod, but we'll need to keep you hidden in the meantime." She hesitated, then nodded. Your kindness humbles me, Dr. Sanderson. I will not forget it. As she lay back down, her form faintly shimmering in the dim light, Eli felt a pang of determination. Whatever the cost, he would protect her. Yet in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that her presence on Zillera 3 would draw dangers far beyond anything he'd ever faced. For better or worse, his quiet life of research was over. The outpost was quiet, but Eli's mind churned with activity. He had spent the better part of a week tending to Seraphine's wounds and helping her regain her strength. Despite her fragile appearance, she was remarkably resilient. Her crystalline network, the strange, glowing system that seemed to replace organs in her body, healed faster than any biological process Eli had ever witnessed. She was an enigma, and Eli's fascination with her only grew as they worked together. Seraphine, too, was not idle. Once she had regained some strength, she began assisting Eli in his lab, explaining aspects of her physiology and her people's technology. While her demeanor remained poised and regal, there was a warmth and curiosity about her that Eli hadn't expected. She was particularly intrigued by Earth's scientific achievements, though she often laughed a musical sound at the crudeness of human technology compared to what Nebulon had achieved eons ago. One evening, as the two pored over the damaged components of her escape pod, the outpost's proximity alarm blared. Red lights flashed, and a mechanical voice droned, "Unidentified ships detected. Proximity, 300 kilometers." Seraphine froze, her luminous eyes widening. "They found me." Eli's heart raced. "Who? The warlord?" She nodded, her expression grim. "His enforcers. They must have picked up traces of my pod's energy signature." "Can we hide you?" Eli asked, already calculating the possibilities. "No," Seraphine said. "If they are here, they will search until they find me. They will destroy this outpost and you along with it." "Not if we stop them first," Eli said, his voice steadier than he felt. Seraphine regarded him with a mix of surprise and admiration. "You would risk your life for me?" "You didn't ask to be hunted," Eli replied. "And I'm not about to let some intergalactic bully destroy everything I've worked for." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Then we must act quickly. I will need to modify your systems to counter their technology." For the next few hours, they worked with frantic precision. Seraphine guided Eli through adapting the outpost's defense grid with Nebulon energy harmonics. Using parts from her damaged pod, they created a makeshift cloaking device to hide the facility. Eli's scientific curiosity blended with adrenaline, pushing him to keep up with her rapid instructions. When the ships entered the atmosphere, the cloaking field shimmered into place. The Enforcer's sleek, black vessels bristling with weapons hovered ominously above the jungle canopy. Through the outpost scanners, Eli and Seraphine watched as search drones descended, scanning the area with beams of red light. "They won't be fooled for long," Seraphine said. "Their sensors will detect the harmonic distortion eventually. Then we'll have to give them something else to focus on," Eli said. With Seraphine's help, he rigged a decoy signal to mimic the energy signature of her pod. They programmed it to project from a point several kilometers away. As the decoy activated, the ships turned and unleashed a barrage of plasma fire at the false target. The jungle erupted in flames, the chaos buying them precious time. "It won't hold them for long," Seraphine warned. "Then let's make sure it doesn't have to," Eli said. "What's the next step?" Seraphine hesitated, her expression unreadable. "We fight." Eli's stomach tightened. "Fight? With what?" She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly steadying. "Your outpost systems are crude, but combined with Nebulon energy, they can be formidable. I will teach you." And so she did. Over the next few hours, Seraphine transformed the outpost's standard defensive capabilities into a hybrid of human ingenuity and Nebulon precision. Turrets were recalibrated to fire energy pulses that could disrupt the Enforcer's shielding. The facility's power core was augmented with Nebulan harmonic amplifiers, increasing its output tenfold. Eli barely recognized his own equipment by the time they were done. When the enforcers finally realized the decoy was a ruse, they descended on the outpost with full force. Plasma bolts rained down, but the enhanced shielding absorbed the attacks with ease. Seraphine took command of the defenses, her hands flying across the controls with practiced grace. Eli manned the turrets, his heart pounding as he targeted the sleek black ships. "Now!" Seraphine shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Eli fired, the turret's modified pulse beams striking one of the ships. Its shield flickered, then failed, and the vessel spiraled out of control before crashing into the jungle below. The remaining ships adjusted their tactics, coordinating their fire on a single point of the shield. "They're adapting," Seraphine said. "But so can we." With a deft motion, she activated a feedback loop in the energy grid, redirecting excess power to the turrets. Eli took aim again, his shots now more precise and powerful. Another ship fell, then another, until only one remained. Realizing it was outmatched, the final vessel retreated, disappearing into the clouds. The silence that followed was deafening. Eli slumped in his chair, his hands trembling. "We did it," he said, hardly believing the words. Seraphine stood beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and pride. "No, Dr. Sanderson. You did it. Without your ingenuity and courage, I would not be alive to see this victory." Eli met her gaze, feeling a strange warmth in her praise. "We make a good team." Her smile was radiant. "Yes, we do." But even as they celebrated their hard-won triumph, Eli knew this was only the beginning. The enforcers would return, stronger and more determined. For now, though, they had a chance, a fragile alliance forged in the crucible of danger to prepare for whatever came next. The aftermath of the battle left the jungle around the outpost scarred, smoldering with the remnants of the decoy's destruction and the enforcers' crashed vessels. But the quiet that followed was fleeting. Eli and Seraphine both knew the warlord would not let this defeat go unanswered. Their temporary reprieve was just enough to plan their next move. Seraphine was the first to break the silence. "We cannot wait here. They will send reinforcements. And this time, it will be an armada." Eli nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to go on the offensive." She tilted her head, her luminous eyes narrowing in thought. "You speak as though you have a plan." "I might," Eli said, leaning over the console. He pulled up a map of Zillera 3, overlaying it with readings from Seraphine's pod and the downed enforcer ships. "These vessels, they rely on a network, don't they? Some kind of hub that coordinates their movements?" "Yes," Seraphine confirmed. "A command ship. It transmits orders and processes data from all units in the field." Eli tapped the screen. "If we can find it, we can take it out. Without the command ship, their forces will be disorganized. It might buy us enough time to escape or even cripple their pursuit entirely." Seraphine's lips pressed into a thin line. Destroying a command ship is no small feat. It is heavily guarded, and its defenses are advanced beyond anything you've encountered. "Good thing I've got an expert in Nebulan technology," Eli said with a faint smile. Her expression softened. "You're more fearless than I expected, Dr. Sanderson." "Call it desperation," he said, standing. "We've got work to do." They spent the next days salvaging what they could from the enforcer wreckage and Seraphine's pod. Seraphine used the Nebulan tech to enhance the outpost shuttle, outfitting it with stealth capabilities and a weaponized energy array. Eli, meanwhile, rigged an improvised EMP device using the enforcer ship's power core's A weapon designed to disable the command ship's advanced systems, if only for a brief window. As they worked, Eli couldn't help but admire Seraphine's resolve. She moved with purpose, her regal demeanor underscored by a fierce determination. Despite the danger they faced, she exuded a calm confidence that bolstered his own. When the preparations were complete, they loaded the modified shuttle and set off into the skies. The journey was tense but uneventful as they followed the signal of the command ship. It wasn't long before the massive vessel came into view, a looming, angular construct that dwarfed the jungle below. Its hull glimmered with defensive shielding, and smaller fighter ships swarmed around it like hornets guarding their nest. "Are you sure about this?" Eli asked, gripping the shuttle's controls tightly. "No," Seraphine admitted, her hand steady as she calibrated the energy weapons. "But certainty is a luxury we cannot afford." As they approached, the stealth systems cloaked the shuttle from the fighter's scanners. Seraphine guided Eli to a weak point in the command ship's defenses, a maintenance hatch too small to be well guarded but large enough for their shuttle to dock. The moment they breached the hatch, alarms blared throughout the command ship. Fighters peeled away from their patrols, converging on the intruders. Eli and Seraphine worked in perfect tandem. She directed the shuttle's energy arrays, taking out pursuers with precision, while Eli piloted the ship through the labyrinthine interior of the command vessel. They reached the core, a massive, pulsing structure that radiated power. Eli activated the EMP device, planting it at the base of the core while Seraphine held off incoming enforcers with the shuttle's weapons. The device emitted a high-pitched whine as it powered up, its countdown ticking down in ominous red digits. "Time to go," Eli shouted, leaping back into the shuttle. Seraphine followed, sealing the hatch behind them as they sped away. The EMP detonated, sending a shockwave through the command ship. Lights flickered, systems sputtered, and the ship's defensive shielding collapsed. Without coordination, the fighters scattered, their formations breaking apart. The command ship itself listed to one side, its engines sputtering as it plummeted toward the jungle below. The shuttle burst free of the chaos, streaking into the open skies. Seraphine let out a breath, her posture relaxing for the first time in days. "It is done." "Not quite," Eli said, his hand steady on the controls. "We still have to figure out where to go from here." She turned to him, her luminous gaze filled with something Eli couldn't quite place. "You could return to your people. Your duty to me is fulfilled." Eli shook his head. "And leave you to face them alone? Not a chance." Her expression softened, and for a moment, the regal mask fell away. "Thank you, Eli. For everything." As they broke through Zillera 3's atmosphere, the stars stretched out before them, a vast, uncharted frontier. Together, they plotted a course toward the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. For Eli, the galaxy was no longer a place of distant wonders but a realm of infinite possibilities. And at its heart stood Seraphine, a beacon of hope and courage, guiding him into a future he could never have imagined.